I couldn't move. Not because I was frozen in fear, though that was definitely part of it, but because the reflection in the mirror where her face should have been wasn't moving either. It just stared at me. But it wasn't me anymore. The man in the mirror was older, gaunt, eyes sunken, skin pale like wax left too long in the sun. He looked like someone who'd been underground for years. And then he smiled. That cracked, hollow smile that every version of me in this house seemed to wear. Except this time, the mirror-faced woman turned her head toward the altar behind me. Slowly, deliberately, as if she wanted me to look. And so I did. There, nestled in the crevice beneath the bones and brushes, was a journal. Small, leather-bound, and warm. I don't mean metaphorically, I mean physically warm, like it had just been held by someone else. The pages inside were handwritten, but not all in the same handwriting. Dozens of different entries, different dates, some of them over a century old. They all began the same way. The house chose me. I skimmed through them. Some were rambling, incoherent, written in what looked like madness. Others were painfully lucid. People talked about the unfinished portraits, about being trapped in reflection, about hearing their own voices from rooms they'd never entered. One entry chilled me more than the rest. June 3rd, 1974. My name is Samuel Harlow. I was born in this house, and I believe I will die here too. But not before it finishes the painting. Not before it has everything it needs. I've seen my face 1,000 times, but never truly seen myself. This place shows you what you are beneath the skin, and sometimes what's waiting to crawl out of it. I turned the page, and the next one was blank, except for a single line freshly written. Now it's your turn, Aiden. My breath caught. No one in the journal had mentioned my name until now. I hadn't told it to anyone, not out loud. I slammed the book shut. The mirror-faced woman was gone, just vanished. I backed away from the altar and started retracing my steps, clutching the journal tight. But something was wrong now. The hallway behind me was different. It branched, split. There were 3 doors where there had only been one. And from behind the center door I heard music. A piano, software, slow, sad. And I recognized the melody. It was the same song the mobile had played in the nursery upstairs. Only now it was complete. No broken notes, no distortion, just heartbreak. I opened the door and stepped into a room that made no architectural sense. It was a ballroom, massive, chandelier above, candlelight flickering in long, gentle waves, and the piano was at the far end, being played by a child, maybe 10 years old, dressed in old-fashioned clothes. He didn't look up as I entered, just kept playing. When the final note hit, he spoke without turning. "Are you going to take my place?" I didn't answer, couldn't. He stood slowly, then finally looked at me. And I saw it, the same face from one of the paintings in the gallery. The boy holding the cracked mirror. Only now. He didn't look like a painting. He looked real, until he blinked and both of his eyes briefly reflected my face. Then he walked right past me and disappeared into the dark behind the curtains. I was alone again, except now all the mirrors in the ballroom, dozens of them lining the walls, began to shimmer. Not just reflect, shimmer, like heat waves rippling across glass. And in each one was a different version of me. Some screaming and some crying. One was laughing, covered in red paint, or blood, I couldn't tell. And one just stood there, whispering something over and over. I stepped closer to that one, tried to read his lips, and finally I heard it, faint like a dying echo. "Don't let her paint you." The mirror cracked, just a small fracture across the center. But the moment it did, I felt something shift inside my chest, like something twisting, stretching, trying to crawl out. I staggered backward. The other mirrors began to crack too, one by one, and with each shatter, the room grew darker, until finally, only one mirror remained intact. And in that mirror, I saw her again. The woman. This time without the veil, without the mirror. Her face was human now, but horribly wrong. Her eyes were endless black, her mouth stitched shut. But even without speaking, I could hear her. inside my head. There's only one way to finish the painting. She raised one hand, pointed to my chest, and I felt it. A burning pain, deep behind my ribs, like something was trying to carve its way out. I fell to my knees, and as the last mirror shattered, everything went black. When I woke up, I was back in the bedroom. Same one from my first night, but the journal was on the nightstand. Open, new page, same handwriting. You've now entered the canvas. Part of you has already been framed. And below that, a new date. Today's. I checked the window. Still night, checked the hallway. All wrong again. The door across from me had changed, now painted red, with a single word carved into it. Studio. I took one step forward, then another. And just as I reached for the knob, I saw it in the hallway mirror. Not me, but someone wearing my skin and holding a brush. The red door with the word studio carved into it radiated heat. Not warmth, heat. Like the hallway had a fever. My fingers tingled before I even touched the knob. Behind the door I could hear the slow hum of something mechanical and wet. Like brushes dragging across canvas soaked in oil. Or flesh. I opened it anyway. I don't know why. Curiosity, compulsion, or maybe because at this point I'm not sure I'm the one making decisions anymore. The room was circular. Stone walls smeared with layers of paint, some fresh, some decades old. The ceiling stretched too high to see, swallowed in shadows. But what chilled me most wasn't the room. It was the easels. Dozens of them, scattered across the studio in concentric rings. Each one had a canvas, and each canvas had me on it, but not painted, stretched. My skin, literally. I staggered back in horror as I recognized the features. My freckles. A scar I got skateboarding at 12. A mole near my collarbone. These weren't representations of me. They were me. And they were still warm. The studio pulsed like a heart. I don't mean that metaphorically. The walls throbbed. I could hear it. Slow, rhythmic beats. As if the house itself had grown its own circulatory system. I stepped forward toward the first canvas. It whispered when I got close. A faint voice, barely audible. He's still painting. I turned toward the center of the room. There was one final easel. Massive. Covered in a black velvet cloth. I knew what was underneath would break me, but I had to see. I gripped the cloth, pulled it down, and stared at the painting underneath. It was me, not another version, not twisted or veiled or aged, just me, sitting in this very room, looking at the painting. I blinked, and in the canvas, I blinked back. Then the painted version of me moved, turned his head, smiled, and behind him in the frame, a door began to open. Another red door, and from the other side stepped something I can barely describe. It looked like a person at first, but there were too many limbs, too many heads stitched together. A hybrid of faces I recognized from other portraits in the house. Men, women, children, all pieced into a single form. It reached a long, sinewy hand toward the painted me, and then I felt it. Cold fingers on my shoulder. I spun around, but nothing was there. Just the sound of brushes moving again. Only this time, I wasn't watching someone paint. I was being painted. I could feel each stroke across my back, my arms, my throat, like wet fire dragging over bone. I looked down at my arms, wet, red, skin peeling in thin strips. It was painting me from the inside out. I ran. I don't remember how I got out of the studio. I just remember stumbling through the hallways, skin burning, chest heaving, until I collapsed in the foyer. Only, it wasn't the foyer anymore. It was the library. The same library I remembered from my first night. Except now it was full of people. Silent, motionless. Dozens of them standing between the shelves, each holding a book. But their faces, each one was a canvas, framed, stitched to their heads. No eyes, no mouth, just paint. And then they began to turn toward me. One by one, books opening in their hands. Each book had a name written in the center. My name. Over and over again. Different handwritings, different scripts, ancient ink, crayon, blood. "Read the ending," one of them said. I couldn't see their mouth move, but the voice was in the air. Another whispered, "Find the unpainted chapter!" And suddenly all the books burst into flame. No heat, just light. And in the fire, I saw images. Me standing in front of a canvas. Me holding the brush. Me becoming the painter. And behind me, always behind me, her. The mirror-faced woman, now with flesh, now with teeth, and she was smiling. When the fire died, so did the library. Gone in a blink. I was alone again, but I was holding something. A page, torn, written on one side in my own handwriting, though I never wrote it. It read, "You are not the last, you are the next." And on the other side, coordinates, latitude, longitude, not a place in the house, somewhere outside this town in Vermont. Why? I found my phone in my pocket, battery inexplicably full. I typed in the coordinates, a remote cabin, no roads, no phone lines, just a location deep in the woods, marked on Google as property of Harlow Foundation, no access. I should have stopped there, but you already know I didn't, because by the time you're hearing this, I'm already in my car, driving toward that next place, that next canvas. One final thing before this chapter ends. As I left the Harlow house for the first time in what felt like years, I passed a mirror in the front hallway. It was shattered when I arrived, but now it was whole, and in it, there was no reflection, just an empty room, and the sound of someone quietly weeping. From inside the mirror.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe for more horror tales.